Here's Ellen Burstyn. I'm a huge fan of Tennessee Williams, too, obviously. I was wondering, have you had experience performing Tennessee Williams material in the past?
Only at the Actors Studio. I worked on scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do a whole production. Tennessee sent me a play that he wrote about Zelda and asked me to do it, Zelda Fitzgerald, and I love that character and I love Tennessee's writing, but I just didn't happen to like that play, so I didn't do it, not realizing it was my last chance until now to do a Tennessee Williams production. So this is really my first full Tennessee Williams project I've done.
Well, when I think about Tennessee Williams, obviously he has a number of qualities that make him stand out as one of our great playwrights, but particularly his depiction of female characters. Mm-hmm. And how do you define his unique voice when it comes to crafting those characters?
Well, I think he was interested in women. Very often writers, the characters they're interested in are the men, and the women are kind of accessories, mm-hmm. where Williams was really interested in the women and what was happening to them interiorly, and was interested in exploring that. I think the love that he felt for his sister and the sympathy he felt for her made him more attuned to women than a lot of writers are looking at women from a man's point of view, but Tennessee was really looking at women from their own point of view.
And the female characters, they might be construed as having kind of contradictory elements to them. They're very strong-willed, but very vulnerable as well. But you see that in something like The Glass Menagerie, the way he viewed his mother as opposed to his sister. It's very complicated, his
well, I think
depiction
that was part of his interest is in the complexity, mm-hmm. And the qualities that were not consistent, but were present in one moment, but not in the next moment. It was the combination of qualities that makes a character interesting. If somebody is just the good wife or the bad mother or the rebellious daughter, that's not so interesting. But when there are all of those things, then we start to get a full spectrum of a human being.
Well, the scenes you have in this film, there's a couple of scenes, but they're so crucial to the piece, and there's so much there. But I'm wondering, is the preparation you do different when you have a few scenes to create a character as opposed to where you have all the time in the world to relay an arc of some sort?
No, not at all. In this particular case, I went to a hospital and observed a woman who had had a stroke and had the physical characteristics that Miss Addie had. And so I would have done that if she was throughout the film or just in the two scenes that I'm in, because it was this concept of a woman who was a world traveler. She wasn't just any woman. She was a woman who traveled the world and wrote about it. So movement was the essence of her existence, now suddenly unable to move. That was the essential problem.
Yeah. And how, in your mind, does your character in this film mirror Bryce's character? What does she have to teach her, do you think?
Well, Bryce is an outsider. I mean, Fisher is an outsider who doesn't fit into the conventional construct, society's idea of what the way a person ought to live, especially a young lady. And Miss Addie is someone who didn't fit in either. She was a different kind of person. I'm not sure, but what she wasn't homosexual. I have a feeling she might have been, because she was very independent and unmarried, and traveled the world, and there are certain indications that I got that she might have been a mirror image of Tennessee, and of course he was always an outsider, even when he was a famous playwright. And so she took full responsibility for her life, even to the point of wanting to decide when it should end. Right. So I think she holds up a model for Fisher of what an independent woman can be that's not going to make the conventional choices.
I would think that the atmosphere on the set had to be particularly special because it's an original, unproduced Tennessee Williams piece, and that feels kind of like hallowed ground for an actor.
I would say there was a sense of keen dedication. There wasn't any cynicism or any, let me change this line, or I'm not comfortable with this word. It was the work was held sacredly.
Mm-hmm. And is it difficult to master Tennessee Williams tonally, particularly in a cinematic performance?
Well, I don't know if I did, but if I did, I didn't feel any hardship in that. His language is so beautiful that it supports you. He expresses things so poetically that it's easy to feel what he was getting at.
Yeah. And tell me I want to ask about the directors that you've worked with as well. And on this one, you have Jodie, and she comes from the stage. I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about her, and if you think that stage experience is important for a director on a film assignment.
Well, I think stage experience is important for any theater artist. I think people who are trained for the stage and then can move to film easily, but it's not true the other way. People who are film trained, when they go to the stage, I've seen it too often because when you're in a film, you're pretty much only acting when the camera's on you. Mm-hmm. Whereas you're on stage, you're in the scene the whole time. And I've seen actors who come from film and go on stage, and they're only acting on their lines. And the rest of the time, they're just kind of standing there. They're not being in that environment and living in that environment. Mm-hmm. And Jodie having stage experience and acting experience makes her much more skilled in listening and detecting the subtleties of acting and knowing what the process is. So I always love working with directors who've been actors.
Mm-hmm. And the ones that you've chosen to work with, the best, Scorsese and Friedkin and Aronofsky and on and on and on, these seem to be very edgy filmmakers, and I'm wondering what qualities you respond to most from a director.
Well, I love creativity, period. And if a director is creative in any way, whether it's with the camera or the text or the whole overall conception, I get turned on by other people's creativity. So, like being around somebody like Marty or Darren Aronofsky, it's exciting, and it lights a fire under me, or adds flame to my fire. So those are my favorite directors, the ones that are imaginative.
Mm-hmm. And you've been acting for many years, and I'm wondering what acting gives you now, the importance it has in your life and the satisfaction you get from it, and how that's matured or changed throughout your career.
Well, early in my career, I wasn't sure of myself. I wasn't sure that I could come up with what my concept was. And sometimes I did, and on occasion I didn't. And as time has gone by, I've learned more and more ways to make myself be relaxed and have what I need in a scene available to me, And so it's gotten to be more satisfying because there's less tension and more assurance, and at the same time made me look for new ways, new difficulties to explore. And then, I teach a lot, so I'm also sharing what I know, so I've gotten clearer about it.
You do teach, and you teach at the Actors Studio, and
Yeah.
I think you're on the yourself and Mr. Pacino and Keitel.
Yeah, we share the presidency, and right now I'm functioning as artistic director too.
Tell me about the actors coming up now, and how they possibly compare with when you were coming up.
Well, when I was studying with Strasberg, you just did study. You didn't just expect to work only when you were employed.
Mm-hmm.
You studied all the time. You closed in a play and were back at the studio the next day, signing up to do a scene. And, I mean, I've even had the experience of doing a play I wasn't successful in and signing up at the studio and bringing it in to Lee to show him what I was doing so I could have some analysis of where I missed. We don't have that as much now. There are some actors who do, thank God, and we have some very exciting new actors at the Actors Studio. But I work often with actors who the only time they act is when they're employed, and therefore they're, as Lee Strasberg used to call it, their instrument isn't in tune. They don't really know how to go to the depths, So whenever I can, I encourage actors to get in a workshop, even if they've done a television series or they've performed on Broadway. They should be in a workshop when they're in between jobs, so they stretch their talent.